Greetings, hope you're well. So, I'm Ido Maria. So, today we are going to talk about lesson 2, which one it talks about demonstrate understanding of different cybersecurity policies and regulations. So, basically, the cybersecurity policies and regulations are those critical components in establishing the framework for protection of information systems, data, and networks from cyber threats. So before we do that, we'll have to have a brief definitional aspect of different terminologies. For example, cybersecurity. I think this one we also did a definition during our first lesson, the recording I did in the first time. This one basically means the practice of protecting computer systems, networks, and data from thefts, damages, or unauthorized access. It involves technologies, processes, and practice designed to ensure the information that is gotten from such computer systems or networks or data is protected and is confidential, and its integrity and its availability is when needed for what purposes. And then cybersecurity policies, this one refers to sort of the guidelines or the procedure that defines the principles and rules governing an organizational approach to cybersecurity. A good example, it can be the data commission policy, or there's usually an IT body that usually handles matters related to IT in Kenya. They usually have the policy that guides it on how it should undertake its processes. Then the third one is cybersecurity regulations. These ones are usually imposed by the government or regulatory bodies to mandate specific cybersecurity practices and standards. A good example you can see from this is, you can use the example of CBK, Central Bank of Kenya. We see there's usually the apps, the loan apps that usually use apps and also information exchange through the internet. So it usually has some policies, it usually has some regulations on how that transactional format should be done, how the subject relates with the loan app, and how the loan app functions with the subject. So this one refers to the cyber regulations. Then the fundamentals of cybersecurity, one of them is the issue of confidentiality. The information that is taken from such a system, a good example, you can use the example of the loan app. Maybe let's say it's cash loan. Okay, let's not choose a specific name because it can have technicalities. Let's say the app name is called Tikecho Loan. So the information that Tikecho Loan has from another person or from the subject, the information has to be confidential. It's only them, or if there are other people that can access that information, then that information should be made available to the subject matter or the data subject. So this one usually involves matters of implementation of encryption, access controls, and secure communication channels to prevent unauthorized disclosure. The other one is integrity. This one is to ensure the accuracy and trustworthiness of data and systems. So this one you have measures such as check systems, digital signatures, integrity checks. They help to prevent and detect unauthorized modification to information. The third one is availability. Like the information and systems should be accessible and usable when needed. Like there's the issue of presence. Uh, like it should be present all the time. A good example you can use, like sometimes you can hear like Facebook is out of is out of the system. Like somebody cannot use Facebook or WhatsApp or sometimes even Microsoft Word, or some other times it's usually LinkedIn. So in such a scenario, like the system that you're using should make it very available. Like it should implement redundancies, disaster recovery plans, and also resilient architectures to minimize downtime. A good example is the one I gave you about the Seshi drinks for Japan, the one that usually provide beverages and alcoholic drinks, on how there was a time just recently in October or November when they had a crisis whereby they were hacked. So you see that issue of availability. Authentication, this one is whereby you verify the identity of the users, the devices, and also the system. So this one, it includes having strong authentication methods that includes maybe multi-factor authentication. This one maybe, for example, maybe two-steps verification, whereby you just log in, then you have to provide your number, then your number has to be given an SMS that you imprint or you write that 4-digit number or the 6-digit number. Then authorization, like who is granted access, like who has access to that account. Risk management is whereby you identify your access and mitigate any cybersecurity risk. Like if the bad is to happen and it has already happened, how do you mitigate that? How do you return back? Many of them, we can just use the example, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Microsoft Word. They just make a public information, a public update, like a system has been hacked and you are doing the means necessary to to recover it. So it's just that the input of information and how you guys undertake it. You can do it for 24 hours depending on the risk or the attack that has been made. And the incident report, this one is the structured approach to addressing and managing the aftermath of cybersecurity incident. This one is whereby you first detect the incident, then you contain it, like the risk has occurred, so you contain it so that it does not become huge. For example, if it's Facebook, maybe it becomes only a specific place or a specific location. So now that one is containment. Then eradication now is how to remove that virus. Or then recovery now is like people are back to the system. And then the last one now you have to take lesson, like what did go wrong, so that you can learn, so that the next thing it happens doesn't happen the same way. Then the other one is compliance. This one is whereby now you adhere to the cybersecurity policies, regulations that are there, and the industry standards. Like the organization has to meet both the legal requirement and also it has to follow the best practices to protect information and user privacy. This one you have to use on the issue of best practices. I'm not a technological professional, but I know there's some certain angles, like there's that practice, though it's not the law, there's that practice. Maybe let's say, okay, I don't know if this one you can use it as a practice, or let's say 1 + 1 is 11, but another person says 1 + 1 is 2. Then the type of cybersecurity policies and regulations. The first one, we have access control policy. Access control policy, this one basically means who has the access to the computer systems, the networks, and the data that is managed. Who has the key? Who has the key to the room or the key to the city? Something like that. So here we have the issues of user authentication, authorization, restrictions on access based on roles and responsibility. You can use the issue or the example, maybe Facebook page, the administrator, the manager, something like that. Then the second one is the data protection policy. Like, how is the data that is collected handled? How is it stored? And how is it transmitted? Like, handled is who receives that information? Like, is it the company itself or is there another person? You have to tell us. Who stores it? And if they store it, how do they transmit it? Do they transmit it to third party, or how is it transmitted? So that information has to be there. Then you have the incident response policy. This one is, it's a policy that tells you the guidelines for detecting, reporting, and responding to cybersecurity incidents. The network security policies focuses on the infrastructure, ensuring it's safe and secure. Then the build policy, this one governs how people use personal devices in the workplace. So now people have to establish rules for securing personal devices connected to the organization network and also accessing sensitive information. Acceptable use policy. This one is the acceptable standards that employees are given when using the, the organization facilities or 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 devices. This one they cover the amount of internet they use, the internet usage, the email etiquette, and the proper handling of sensitive information. For example, how is sensitive information handled? Is it maybe whenever somebody writes, they usually write their confidential in that information. Then there's the issue of mobile device management. This one addresses the security of mobile devices. For example, we have smartphones and also tablets. This one includes device encryption, remote wipe capabilities, and application restrictions. The next one is privacy policy. Privacy policy is how the organization collects, uses, stores, and shares personal information. Because personal information is very critical. The last example I gave you is that the information a patient gives to a hospital is very important. It might seem less important maybe to a hospital, but to a larger factory or a larger company, for example, like a biotechnology company that deals with the production of vaccines and drugs, those informations are very critical for them to use that information to come up with another drug or to come up with another cure or a remedy or prevention. So the information that is taken, it has to be very careful. Then the other one is cloud security policy. The example I'll give this one from my understanding is cloud policy. Like the data that is collected sometimes is usually very heavy. For example, it can be 1 GB or 1 TB terabyte if I'm not mistaken. So now the cloud is the place whereby if that information, the storage capability is too huge, where does it go? We have issues like Amazon Web Service. Now, like if we are to go there, how secure is it? Or we have the Microsoft Azure, something like that. Then the next one is regulatory compliance policies. Like the organization has to adhere to the relevant cybersecurity regulations and standards. Then for the application of different cybersecurity policies, the first one is we have access control policy. Access control policy, this one basically is the protecting who gets access. A good example you can use, maybe if you use email, two-factor authentication. There's two-factor authentication using an email address, using a phone number. So basically that's it. And defining, sometimes it's defining the roles somebody has. A good example is Facebook. If you have an account or a page, you give roles of who has access to that account. Is it the social media manager? Is it the administrator? Or is it the editor? Or I think there's usually manager, editor, and administrator. And then there's the restriction of accessing of unauthorized access to sensitive systems and information. Data protection policy, this one is the issue about how to protect the information that one has. Maybe you can encrypt, whereby a good example, if we use how banks usually do it, if they send you an information, they usually tell you, kindly write the last 6 letters, the 6 numbers in your bank account number. So encrypting service data. And then there's also classification of the data if it's sensitive, and ensuring the data handle practices. And then the other one is incident response policy. This one is whereby it's just doing drills, like standard drills, like just preparing yourself just in case. Like there's usually that plan, for example, if something happens, this is what you should do. So it's just preparing the organization, like in imaginary terms, in case it's happening. It's just preparing themselves and maybe learning and saying, okay, we have this policy. We are saying if we have been attacked, this is what we'll do. And from this drill that we did, we are finding that there's a certain loophole. Maybe the step 3, we did it in 5 minutes and we're supposed to do it in less a moment. So basically, that's what it does. Then network security policies, whereby you configure the firewalls, you implement intrusion detection and prevention systems, and also conducting regular network vulnerability assessments. Bring your own device policy. It's the same issues, personal devices, device encryption, using strong password, and using mobile device management solution. And then the 6th is acceptable use policy. This one is coming up with a policy on how the internet should be used, uh, how the internet should be used, how the email communication should be done, and defining consequences for policy violations. A good example I can give this one, let's say setting guidelines for appropriate internet usage. The example I can give with this one is, for every farm, there's usually the Wi-Fi that is being used. The way that is usually being used, it has some level. We have the 2 Mbps, the 10 Mbps, the 20 Mbps, the 20, the 30. That category, I only know until 20, so you can guide me if there are others, but I know there are others above that. So basically, that's how I can use in that example. Then the mobile devices management policy. This one is security measures on mobile devices, for example, such as remote wiping of lost devices. This one also includes monitoring device activity. A good example you can use here is about Facebook. For example, Facebook usually knows where you are logging in from. For example, if you're logging in from Kilifi, then suddenly you log in from maybe Tanzania or Uganda, it usually sends you a pop-up say, is it you who who has logged in from this space? So yes. Then privacy policies, whereby you you inform the data subject, whereby the information that you get, how are you using it, how, like how, who has access to it, how is it transmitted, like you're informing them beforehand so that it doesn't come as a surprise. And then if you are processing data, you have to you obtain consent from it, and also ensure compliance with the privacy regulations. A good example here, since you're in Kenya, you can use the Data Commission. Then cloud security policy, I told you about the Amazon, the Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Web Services. So it's just using the best one that is there. And then the regulatory compliance policies is ensuring the policies align to the different regulations or policies that are in the country at the moment. And then for the stakeholders involved in the cybersecurity policies, First one, you have the government authorities and agencies. The first one, you have the legislators and policymakers. This one are the person who makes the laws and the regulation. We have the cybersecurity agencies. Here we have the cybersecurity agencies, one of them from the Kenyan aspect. I've given you the example of UK and others, but from the Kenyan example, I have the communication authority here. They have given a task force called the National Kenya Computer Incident Response Team Coordination Center, which was officially launched in 2014. So basically, we use that one from the Kenyan perspective. And then law enforcement agencies hereby we can use DCI mostly or NIS. Then for the regulatory bodies, we have for industry specific. A good example, you can use issues about shares, you can use capital market authorities, you can use, there's also Kenya anti-deposit, the issue of deposit out, the deposit like we can also use the insurance revenue authority, IRA, if I'm not mistaken. You can use that one also. We have the CBK for banks and finance. Then we also have data protection authorities, for example, the data commissioner in our aspect here. Industry association and standard organization for cybersecurity industries. We have the Information System Security Association. I also believe there are also associations that are in Kenya that deals with cybersecurity. Then for the Standard Development Organization, we have organizations like International Organization for Standardization or the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. For businesses and organizations, you have corporate executives and board of directors, ensuring that cybersecurity policies are implemented within the organization. Here is whereby they make strategic decisions regarding cybersecurity investments and risk management. Then you also have chief information security officers and IT security system. These ones are responsible for implementing and managing cybersecurity policies within organization. They oversee security measures, incident responses, and also compliance. Then the third one, you have legal and compliance team. This one, they ensure that they align themselves with the laws and regulations or rules that are applicable at the moment. You see, for cybersecurity, as you have stated at the initial, is that we started with the evolution of the internet within the 1980s and the 1970s when the internet was only applicable to academia and the defense. So you see, if you trace that step up to now, 1980s up to now, 2025, you see that the lower cities is evolving. So for the legal and compliance teams also to be the same, like the team has to look at the evolving nature of the cybersecurity laws as the time goes by. Then the next one we have technology providers and vendors. Here we have security solution providers. This one are people who provide cybersecurity products and services. A good example here we can use, if not wrong, we have people who offer Wi-Fi. We can put them in this place. Then the sixth one is educational and research institution. We have academic researchers and educators. I think that one is self-explanatory. Then the seventh one, we have general public and consumers. We have the individual users and consumers, and also we have privacy advocacy groups. So for any professional or the stakeholders that are there, for the industry or the sector to grow, it usually involves an issue of collaboration among the stakeholders in unison, so as to come to an understanding, so that maybe they come up with rules or regulations or policies amongst themselves, so that they can hamper or foster development amongst the sector or the category of professionals they are. So basically, in conclusion, that's what it requires among these stakeholders. for the betterment of the profession. It requires they as the stakeholders, which are 7 in numbers with different subsectors, to come in unison and to come into agreement, and also so as to contribute to building a resilient and secure digital environment. And then the regulatory bodies in cybersecurity policies. This one, they play a pivotal role because they establish first, then they oversee and they enforce policies to ensure the security of the systems and the data. And this one, they usually happen both national, regional, and international. And they usually work with various stakeholders. It might be international bodies, for example, like the UN or the AU or the East African communities. So the examples that are given here are from UK, US, EU, and also UK, Germany. We have also Australia. We have also another one from UK, Singapore. But the main example that you can use is the one I told you about, the Kenyan one, which one is the National Kenya Computer Incident Response Team Coordination Center, which is abbreviated as National KE-CRT.cc, which was officially launched in 2014. So basically, their roles as the regulated bodies is first is they foster development and enforcement of cyber security policies, and also their roles range from setting standards and guidelines to providing guidance, promoting awareness, and collaborating with diverse stakeholders. So basically, the aim of the regulatory bodies is to create a robust and resilient cybersecurity environment to counter the evolving threats in the digital landscape. Although this one is a matter for debate because it depends on who or the person is. Other people are for pro-independence and other people are for pro-regulation. So it depends. Others usually subscribe to the notion that let the market let the market let the market let the market regulate itself. A good example maybe can use the one for the Bitcoin territory, or the other one, depending on who you are, you can say let the government make rules so that it can have equal playing field. So it depends on where you come from or your line or school of thought is. You might be for independence or you might be for regulations. So basically, that's it for lesson 2. Thank you.